How long can a human sleep for? What happens if you drink liquid paper? All of these questions you can find the answer to on This Paranormal Life! Welcome everyone to This Paranormal Life, the comedy paranormal podcast where every week we investigate a brand new paranormal tale, case, claim, or beast and come to a conclusion as to whether or not it is truly paranormal. My name is Rory Powers, your lead investigator for today, and I'm joined, of course, by the one and only Kit Greer. How are you doing, Kit?
I'm the backup investigator on today's case. If Rory is to die mid-recording, I will dutifully take up the script and finish the pod, and then, if there's time at the end, call the emergency services.
This isn't going out live or anything, so you could probably, if you want, you could call
the
the
show
emergency
must
services.
go on, my friends.
Yeah.
And if you are gasping for breath, and if you are tugging on my trousers saying, Kit, I'm still alive, but barely get me to the A&E, I'll
Sounds
say
like you should take priority.
Silence, because
It sounds like you
the
should take
truth must go
priority
on.
over
The
that,
truth must
because
go
it
on,
sounds like
because
in this hypothetical,
the podcast is priority.
I could be saved. It sounds like I could be saved in that hypothetical.
So, I mean, you think one person's life, your life, is worth more than the enjoyment of thousands of people?
I don't know why you couldn't just save me, and then we could both do the show,
Look, I'm just
even at the
saying,
hospital together.
I would expect you to do actually something quite different in the case of my death, because if I collapse to the floor, I need you to stop the pod.
So it's different for you if it was you?
Of course. Different rules for lead investigator versus backup. I don't know why you're getting angry at me. This has been the policy the whole time. You just haven't died yet on the pod.
And if something happens to both of us at the same time, we have Mike and Jerry just off camera waiting to hop in at every second. And if something happens to Mike and Jerry, we've got Jessica and Larry, and they're ready to hop in it. There's a whole chain of command.
That's right. And if you get 8 or 9 steps on that chain of command, we did get desperate. It does just, I think it's just both our moms.
You know, some people are going to say that the only reason we're hosting the show right now is because we killed our predecessors, and that's how we got the slot. And those claims are completely unfounded. And if you say them again, I'll end you, like I did them.
Wait, you might want to
Sorry, I think I would have been
that last
farther.
whole line.
Yeah. Can we actually beep that in the edit or something? Because I f***ed up there big time. And I think the less I say about what we did do to the original host of the show, I think is... I'm talking again. I'm putting my foot in my mouth.
All I'm
here.
saying is Mike and Jerry don't get any big ideas, because we're here to stay.
Let's just forget that I mentioned anything about that, and we'll just jump into today's case. It was August 25th, 1972, and we're in the Kera region of Kochi, Japan, where 13-year-old Michio Seo was on his way home from school. He was walking leisurely down the streets, past the rice fields, when he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. Something small, fluttering in the air above the fields. Michio was in no rush, so, being the curious little 13-year-old that he was, he ran into the field to get a closer look. But he didn't realize he was about to discover something no one else had seen before.
Just stay out of the fields.
It's a good start, isn't it? Already an exciting
A
start.
new type of rice. This was the day brown rice was discovered.
It had been white up until then. The object hovered in the sky, moving in a jolty motion, almost like a bat. But this thing wasn't an animal. It was made of metal, a strange metal that was dull, not shiny at all. Michio says it was the shape and size of a hat, almost as if, let's just say it looked like a tiny little UFO.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Michio's eyes were fixed on the little ship, not wanting to lose sight of it. But as he drew closer to the strange little craft, he was struck by a blinding beam of light that froze him in his tracks. Too afraid to get any closer, Michio ran out of the field.
Good lord.
What are your thoughts so far, Kit, on this tiny little, cute little UFO?
The implications here are enormous, Rory, that any time you might have seen a hat,
Right, okay.
at any given moment, that could have been a tiny UFO.
I don't know how many hats you see just out in the wild fluttering about like a bat.
Made of dull metal. Still very alarming. If a ray of light comes out of this thing and hits you, that's terrifying. Is this some kind of tractor beam, some kind of neuralizer?
Yeah, I like the idea of seeing this craft and you're like, my God, it must be just on the edge of the horizon. It's enormous. And then it just like bumps into your head and you're like, oh, it's tiny and very close.
Just making the same noise as a drone, like.
Yeah, we don't usually see a lot of crafts like this, so I already thought this was an interesting case.
Very.
Michio decided the best thing he could do was to find his friends and tell them what he'd just seen. Which, as we know, trying to tell your friends you've seen a UFO is always a difficult task, even when it's a real life-size UFO.
Yeah, what are you going to tell them? Stuart Little from the planet Gorgon has come down as little red UFO?
Yeah, it's not going to help if they're like, you're trying to tell us this giant UFO descended on a rice field. If you reply with going, that's the thing, it was the size of a bean. They're like, okay, we were already not on board for it being a normal UFO. Lie to us and tell us it's a normal UFO first. And then maybe if we see the thing, we can come to terms with how small it is.
Yeah.
It's like you're throwing too many things at them.
It's kind of...
Did I mention it smelt like purple? It's like, okay, Michio, I think you had enough rice for one day.
He's just got like rice all around his mouth. It's like, did you just start eating the fucking bad rice in the middle of the field? It is kind of funny though, isn't it? Because if we're talking in terms of potentially extraterrestrial life, why is the size of the craft such a big obstacle to believing the story? Like,
right.
Is it not crazy enough as is?
Yeah, because we're not saying, 3 tiny little guys are going to come out of it. This could be like a little recon drone flying around to just scan
That's true.
the environment and then head back up to the mothership. We don't know yet.
But it is kind of funny that, so many people can accept ET, but they absolutely draw the line at an alien the size of a mouse.
Like, ET's already pretty small. He can fit in the basket of a bike. Well, despite their skepticism, Michio led the gang back to the outskirts of town and began scanning the sky above the rice paddies, trying to find this tiny UFO. Hours passed, but there was no flying saucer to be seen. The kids were getting tired and hungry, and it was starting to get dark. Was this some kind of joke to you, Michio? My mom's gonna be worried sick. Yeah, I can't believe you... Mate! Kore wa nan desu ka?
I'm sorry, my sense of place is really rocked by this dialogue.
Just using some immersive storytelling here by bringing in their natural tongue.
Because I would just like to jump in here and just, I could help translate that for the viewers because I've actually been to Japan on holiday for at least a week. I picked up a couple things there. So I think in this case, Michio's friend is saying, f***ing hell, there it is.
No, it's not what they're saying at all.
It is.
What, mate kore wa nan desu ka?
Yeah, mate,
No, it's
kore,
absolutely not.
hell, nan desu ka.
Why would he be so
there
rude?
It is.
Why would he
It's as
even
simple
be
as that.
so
One
rude?
word per word, it's...
These are children, so I don't think any of that would be in their vocabulary.
This is gritty, realistic dialogue.
These aren't East End gangsters hunting a UFO.
F***ing hell, mate. What the hell's that? What's that coming down the apples and pears, yeah? Said Michio, the 9-year-old schoolboy.
The kids craned their heads upwards to see something twinkling above their heads. It was the little craft! The children watched as it flashed different colors while it floated from side to side. Knowing that this was their chance to get a better look, the boys slowly started to approach the craft. But before they could get close, the craft turned blue and emitted a horrifying, deafening roar. The teens covered their ears and ran home as fast as their little legs could carry them. Kit, are you done at this point? I feel like I'm done.
What if you're one of the little boys?
If I'm one of these little boys, this thing obviously doesn't want to be messed with. It's flashing you, it's screeching in your eyes and ears. At what point is it not worth it?
I agree. I mean, I think, the little boy equivalent of nuke it is go get your big brother to beat it up.
Right, with a baseball bat.
Yeah, this is terrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like, it obviously doesn't want to be f***ed with.
Yeah.
And you're f***ing with it pretty hard. And eventually you're going to wake it up and it's probably going to disintegrate one of the children.
Yeah, I mean, Michio got lucky the first couple of times. I mean, he should have counted his blessings the first time that it didn't just vaporize him.
Yeah. I'd like to think maybe they'll keep pushing it a little bit too far. So, they'll come back and they'll throw some stones at it and it'll be like,
Please stop, humans. I am only here to observe. Please refrain from touching me.
and they're like pinning it to the ground, poking it in all the little holes. And it's like,
Please stop. Children, I must disintegrate. Disintegrate, children. Get the off of me.
just snaps. It just grows arms and starts punching them.
All right, it. I ignored my friends when they said this was a shithole planet. Destroying Earth in 5, 4.
Oh, we're sorry. Sumimasen. Oh, you speak Japanese.
It's pretty brave for them to approach this thing a second time. And they're not done yet either. While the kids were a little shaken up, they weren't going to let this thing get away. It had reappeared once, maybe it would turn up again. It did. September 4th, the tiny UFO reappeared, once again flying low over the rice fields. The kids tried approaching the craft, but again, it blasted them with a light to scare them away. At this point, the kids realized this thing would be impossible to catch. If they wanted evidence to show the world, they were going to have to get it some other way. So 2 days later, when the craft returned, the boys had a camera in hand, ready to capture the evidence they needed.
Love this. This is how paranormal investigators are born.
Oh yeah.
We all start off life wandering through rice paddies, looking for the unknown, that sacred new type of rice. When little do we know, something even crazier is lurking around the corner, and we have to capture it using physical evidence.
I got a lot of respect for these kids as well for having the intuition to bring a camera. The amount of adults that we have come across in paranormal cases where it's never even a thought for them to bring a camera, photo or video, to capture any evidence.
For some reason, they just think their word is as good as gold.
Right. They're like, well, the last time I saw a Bigfoot, I was 12 beers deep, so I'm going to get 12 beers deep again and hope he shows up. Like, no! Go back to where you found him with a camera crew.
This is one of those times that, like, kids just know better than us.
Sometimes it's right. Sometimes they do. So the boys slowly crept up on the tiny UFO as it was resting on the ground. And before it knew that they were there, they managed to snap a picture. The moment the camera went off, the craft began spinning around and slowly started to lift off into the air. Quickly, Michio! Take another picture before it gets away! When they snapped another picture, the floating hat emitted a brief, bright flash before falling to the ground, motionless.
Wow.
One of the boys, Hiroshi Mori, bravely stepped forward and picked up the object, a moment that was captured in this photograph.
Yo!
Check this out.
Let's go. So what year was this again?
1972.
Okay. That would make sense because this photo looks like it was taken on a Game Boy.
Right. Oh, yeah. The resolution isn't great.
There's about 16 pixels, all of them black and white. No, it's a good photo though. We are definitely in a rice paddy or something. This is one of the young boys, and he is indeed holding something. Something's there.
What do you want us to say,
Yeah, it's
exactly what it is.
Yeah, it does look like a very small hat, silver in size, or silver in color, and small in shape and stature. This thing could definitely go by easily unnoticed. So fair play to them for spotting it.
The one thing that I like about it, I mean, there are some better pictures as well of the craft, which we're going to see, but it doesn't really look like anything that I've seen before.
No, this is a totally novel shape for this paranormal life.
As he held it, Hiroshi could feel the internal mechanisms whirring. Not wanting it to get away, he wrapped it in a blanket and shoved it in his backpack, where they decided to take it home for closer inspection. I think that's a pretty ballsy move.
I agree.
You gotta be pretty sure that thing's not gonna start up when it's in the backpack, or else you're going to the moon.
He walks in the door, mom, I'm home, and they're like, oh, how was your day? He just smashes up through the roof as if he's been yanked with a bungee cord.
Take a picture!
He escapes into the clouds.
Yeah, you're wearing a jetpack at that point.
not to mention, what if this thing is like radioactive? What if its jet engines power on and it roasts your ass with 1,000-degree centigrade beam?
What if your mum goes to check if you brought your homework back and this thing flashbangs her eyes as soon as it's opened? It's like, oh, I wonder if Hiroshi brought his packed lunch back from... Oh!
You leave it alone for 2 seconds in the kitchen with your mum and dad. You come back and they're just like Thanos snap style, just disintegrating. I don't feel so good, Hiroshi. No!
It's pretty brave to think you can control this thing in any way. This is like the TV show about Chernobyl, when people are just picking up rocks to try and move them from A to B. That's not a rock. That's a piece of radioactive core, and now you have not long left to live. It could be the same with this. You don't know its genetic makeup of the planet that it's from.
This is like...
It could be from planet Zargon, where dirt is fire and air is knives. So you maybe don't want to touch it too softly.
This is like 10-year-old Ash Ketchum capturing a legendary god Pokemon with a Pokeball.
Right.
And then just sticking it in his pocket and thinking he can go on with the rest of his life with a god Pokemon on his person. He's opened a can of worms. He's opened the Pandora's box, and life will never be the same again.
It's dangerous. Are we going to say that these kids have now entered some sort of paranormal realm where they could die at any second? There's only one way to find out. To continue the story. Now, this is why this case is amazing. Because they actually managed to capture the craft, there is so much information about it that they took down. These kids are pros. As I said, they're better than some adults.
Wow.
Hell, they're better than us. They weighed and measured the craft. It was about 1 kg, 8 by 4 inches large. But the most startling part was what was on the base of the object. The perimeter of the craft was covered by strange concentric circles, and the middle part had 31 neatly arranged holes surrounded by engravings that looked like they'd been done by hand or alien claw. Now, I could go on to describe what this disc looked like, or I could just show it to you. That's right, after capturing the disc, the boys took close-up photographs. And you were complaining about the resolution before? Have a little peep at that, my friend.
Wow, this is a lot more details. This is really fantastic stuff. So yeah, the underside of this thing is very fascinating looking. I mean, if I had to describe it broadly, you know, the outside of this circular shape looks a little bit like a cross section of a tree with all the rings.
Right.
But the inner portion is, yes, these interesting circular shapes. Looks a little bit like a shower head, but then with clear designs as well. Clearly there's kind of a functional design here, but there's also some kind of artistic one. They've got kind of little drawings on there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, putting, you know how we put like vinyls on our cars, like stickers and stuff? It looks like, Mick, we want our UFO to go faster, so here's a picture of a bird on it, or a cloud.
Here's an R.I.P. Paul Walker carving, and then this one just says, ass, gas, or grass, no one rides for free.
There's a, honk if you're horny on the side there. Did I mention it was honking pretty hard when the kids found it? Actually wouldn't shut up.
Turns out it's pretty horny.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to make out what those sketchings are from this picture. But from the boys' description, they said it was pictures of a bird, clouds, and some sort of flying object.
Bird, clouds, and interesting.
Yeah.
That is pretty fascinating, though, because doesn't that infer that this thing potentially comes from somewhere with those things?
That's a really good point. Or are those, signifiers or symbolic of Earth?
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, where's this little frisbee going again? It's like, well, check the base, you idiot Craig. Clouds, bird. It's going to the cloud bird planet. Earth, obviously. And then they just, like a frisbee golfing frat boy, just chuck it down where it starts doing its reconnaissance.
That's a really interesting concept. I guess it's a little bit like how, I don't know, back in the day, they might have called boats something to do with where that boat came to and from, what its journey was, whether it was like, the West Indies, HMS West Indies or something.
This is basically like a postal address.
Right.
That's instead of just giving the coordinates for Earth, they're like, hey, it's the cloud bird place.
It's really though that this happens quite often on in paranormal and UFO stories, that these seemingly alien civilizations have control over incredible technology to fly between galaxies. They also don't use words. They just draw pictures still.
And might I say, I think Earth got off quite lightly by being referred to as the cloud bird place.
If you're some kind of flying civilization and maybe you get around everywhere by flying in a craft, and maybe you even come from somewhere like Venus, they've hypothesized maybe there's aliens there that just live in a cloud city.
Wow.
Maybe
Lando
they just
Calrissian.
Yeah, maybe they just came to Earth and never looked below the clouds.
Yeah.
Like, this is just clouds and birds for millions of miles.
You'd be pissed off if you went to an alien ship and found all these discs. And we were like, yeah, so that disc, as you can see, the base plate is made of solid gold. So it's going to the Afcon galaxy where, people are living a perfect utopia. This one's going to... and as you can see, it's just a happy face because people have perfectly mastered the balance of emotions. This one's Earth. As you can see, it's the poop emoji, shitting on a smaller poop emoji that we actually just used from a bunch of recycled parts. If that one doesn't get back to us, we don't actually care too much. The last one we sent down there, the humans tried to eat it and it. So we're not really holding out much for that one.
It's a dirt planet for dirt people.
Yeah, I'll take birds and clouds. That sounds pretty nice, actually. Now, these were sensible young men. They decided to take their discovery to the highest authority they knew, one of their dads. Luckily, it just so happened that he was also the director of the Kochi Center of Scientific Education.
Interesting. This could also explain these boys bent towards the scientific and their curious little minds.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been raised the right way to question and be curious about the outside world.
If anyone could tell them what this thing was, it was probably him. But Mr. Mutsuo was a busy man. He gave it a quick glance, but ultimately didn't take the boy's story very seriously. If we've learned anything from over 200 paranormal investigations, it's that if you're a child, you best hope you don't have a paranormal experience, because no one's gonna believe you. If you're 17 years old and on the eve of your 18th birthday, Bigfoot crashes your house party, you're gonna be like, dude, can you please just come back in one day while I'll be a grown man legally? And people will take this seriously.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old boy saying he saw a Bigfoot, nobody gives a shit. You have to be an adult to have a paranormal experience.
It's so true. If you're a child and you've seen something paranormal, sad to say, but you might as well go back to playing your Nintendos because no one's going to listen to you. They're going to think it happened in the Nintendo game.
Yeah, maybe keep your mouth shut and then retell it, and hopefully it'll still make sense in the context of being a man.
Yeah, it'll be like the Parasite movie at the end. It's like, you need to now go on like a 8-year change of lifestyle where you try and become a successful businessman. Right. And then in the middle of a board meeting someday be like, hey, I actually saw something weird.
Now that you all respect me, I need to really bring this up. I don't know why we're a business because Earth money means nothing to me. For what I saw was pretty up. They're like, if you had told us this, we wouldn't have made you CEO of the company because I feel like you don't have profits at the heart of your priorities. You're goddamn right, Michael. Because I think you're one of them.
Because I've been taking those profits and I've been throwing them in this portal to another galaxy.
That's a toilet! You idiot!
Well, it's like I've told the story about how we went to primary school with a kid who insisted that he was a Beetleborg.
Right.
He might have been, for all I know.
This is it. This is the thing.
But no one will ever believe him because he was a child at the time.
Because we also, the big, the closest we ever got to gang wars in Northern Ireland was the Beetleborgs versus the Power Rangers kids.
Sure.
At school. And I think I've maybe said it on this podcast before, but I was the Red Ranger at school. I was the leader of the Power Ranger kids.
Which is really humble of you, by the way, to give yourself that title.
Well, I earned
Red
it.
Ranger.
I earned it through the blood of many children.
It's like the podcast. You had to kill the other Red Ranger.
I actually beat the shit out of that Beetleborg nerd. And it was tough because he actually was a Beetleborg. He had a lot of powers.
He had a lot of moves,
He had
yeah.
a lot of cool moves. What the were the Beetleborgs? Weren't they just like bootleg Power Rangers?
Yeah. I think, did they turn into like giant beetle-shaped robots or something? It
Yeah.
was very similar.
Or they had a car that was also a beetle and they like came out of the beetle's ass.
I don't know why they were so tied to the beetle concept. I mean, Power Rangers, they turned into many different things.
If anything, the beetle part was really handcuffing them to a premise that they shouldn't have been involved in.
And they're not a very cool or dangerous animal.
What board meeting were these old white men just like, all right, you know what kids love? Power Rangers and Beatles. So let's give them both.
Kids are always eating bugs. Let's give them bugs. That's what they want.
Yeah, I think it was part of that generation of children's entertainment when they were just combining things together. So, you know, it would be like biker mice from Mars.
Yeah.
It was always something and something else like mashed
There's
together.
a kind of Cards Against Humanity style pitch concept. You just put random ideas together. Me and my wife actually saw her niece recently, and who's about 3 or so, or 4, 3, I think.
Sorry,
And-
just before you go on, is she a Beetleborg or a Power Ranger? I just need to understand.
I don't think
where-
either of those shows are very relevant anymore, so I don't think she would
it's important.
claim
though.
to be part of either faction.
Okay. Do you think though, if she had to choose, do you think she's more part of the Beetle Alliance, or
I mean,
is she one of the good guys? Let's word it like that.
what is this going to affect your opinion of this child?
It's
in
gonna
any way?
It's gonna affect a lot of things going forward. Gonna depend on whether my fist affects her face.
Okay, well, that's a 3-year-old you're talking about, so that's quite enough.
Yeah, the next time we're back in Northern Ireland and I see her by the house, I just sneak up behind her. It's morphin' time! Swing and miss. She absolutely takes me out. Oh, you beetle bastard! I don't know what that is. You're one
In time.
You're one
so
of
high
them.
pitched.
Why do a sneak attack and then yell it's morphin' time before you do it?
It's at the nursery school is just a wanted poster of Rory in a children's red Power Ranger outfit.
Belly hanging out.
But,
Do not let this man near the school.
I was surprised to see that these kids were watching the show on Netflix called Dinosaur King,
Wow.
which I don't know if it's new, but it was basically Digimon.
What? Really?
I mean, here's the Netflix little preview.
Whoa, I've never even heard of this. It's like an anime and everything.
Yeah, it's like an
what? That's a
anime.
Digimon.
Yeah, it's just Digimon. But these kids in 2021 with all the new stuff in the world, they still want to see anime boys and girls running around capturing monsters and fighting each other.
It's timeless. It really is.
It really is.
Good idea is a good idea forever. Where the heck am I? They showed it to their dad, the scientist, who was a busy man, took a quick glance, didn't give a shit.
Sure.
The gang left with the little spaceship tucked back into the rucksack, disappointed that they hadn't got the answers they were looking for. But they weren't giving up. Maybe tomorrow they could find their answers. The next day, when the kids opened up the backpack to re-examine the craft, it was gone. It had somehow escaped from the bag and was nowhere to be seen. Over the next few weeks, they scoured the skies above the rice fields, but saw nothing but rain clouds.
I mean, I don't know why they thought a zip on a bag could keep this thing hostage.
I guess it doesn't have any, hands or anything, so if it can just kind of fly and bounce about, maybe? Oh,
This is the best case scenario. They're very lucky this thing didn't burn down the house.
this is the weirdest thing that could have happened, because one thing, it could have just taken off inside of the bag, and your bag is gone now.
So true.
But for it to have escaped the bag, unzipped it somehow, and disappeared without a trace,
I'm starting to think Mr. Mitsuo opened the bag and took the thing out because he actually was pretty interested.
I don't know. Seems like he was pretty dismissive right off the bat.
All right.
I think in interviews he's even gone on to say he regrets not giving this a second thought.
Sure.
You know, that's the cliche, isn't it? You grow up and you're the businessman. You don't have time for your son's little games. Your son's little games are actually extraterrestrial life.
Your son's little fucking game is a bigger deal in your entire scientific career. How about that?
Isn't that so poetic? You know, he's working in the lab with the coat on, examining the stars. I don't know what he's doing.
In a lab, looking at the stars. Is
Searching.
the inside or outside?
Feeling that cold breeze of the laboratory, the dark lab. You know, he's looking for the answers, and he had them handed to him by a child. And he said, "Get that scrap metal out of my sight, you little bastard.
This thing's glowing. Wow.
I know the secrets to eternity."
Get that fucking microwave out of my face.
The thing was gone. They couldn't find it. But finally, 2 weeks later, the bad weather had passed, and the boys went out to hunt the object down once more, retracing all the spots they'd seen it in. Eventually, they caught sight of it over the rice fields again. At this point, the kids are a well-oiled machine. They're like a SWAT team. They capture the ship once again, secure it tightly in the bag, making sure the zipper is done all the way up and around. They walk home, discussing what their next step should be.
We should take it apart and see how it works.
"I think we need to take it back to your dad. He didn't even look at the engravings."
Take it out. Let me see them again.
They unzip the backpack to discover the craft was gone again.
Off. Holy moly. This thing is hard to pin down.
They couldn't believe it. It had taken them 2 weeks to find the thing again, and it had just disappeared.
Wow.
Pretty crazy. It's getting a lot more elusive.
It's a good thing there was multiple kids there, because you're turning to Hiroshi and you're like, did you f***ing... I'm not going crazy, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we did get it. We did put it in a bag.
Yeah, you'd be starting to freak out a little bit if you're
Yeah.
just, you'd be double checking every 2 minutes to make sure it's still there.
So this thing can basically teleport.
That's what it seems like. It has a couple more disappearances coming up, but that's more or less what it can do. Instead of giving up, they put their heads together to make a plan to nail this thing once and for all. The boys hunkered down, examining all the evidence that they'd gathered so far. They went over the times and dates of each sighting, looking for a pattern or a connection of some kind. That's when they realized the only reason the craft had disappeared for 2 weeks was because of the weather.
Huh?
They had only seen it on dry days, never once when it had been raining.
These kids are smart.
This is great, isn't it? It's fun to have a UFO case where it's not like a flash in the pan incident.
Yeah.
Like,
This is a repeatable, which is, I think that's a word scientists use.
Yeah.
Repeatable thing.
it's great to have all of this evidence, all of this testimony, and I really appreciate the work that they put in, even when their parents were so dismissive. So on the next sunny day, the boys made their way out to the field, carrying buckets of water. Once again, they spotted the little craft. And this time, one of the boys managed to leap on it with a blanket, pinning it to the ground. Once the craft was down, the boys began dumping their water buckets over the lump of the blanket.
Oh my god, they're so pissed.
They're basically waterboarding a little UFO. Then they peeled the cloth back and flipped over the silver craft onto its back, where they poured water directly into the little holes.
What did it do to deserve this?
This is kind of isn't it? I don't know if there's ever been a case we've examined where I've been on the side of the UFO.
Yeah, of a spaceship. Why should we care?
I know. It
Tell
just
us your
seems-
secrets or die, mother.
or we'll drown you.
You don't like water, do you? Have some of this.
The craft began to light up and buzz as if it was short-circuiting.
I'm sure it was.
Quickly, let's get it home and take it apart before it escapes again. We were joking about this earlier, but how fitting is this that, as we said, if these discs were sent to a bunch of planets, it's a shame that the one that ended up on Earth, no one gave a about until kids had to pin it down and drown it and then smash it with a hammer. If that thing is transmitting a signal back up to extraterrestrials, it's gonna say there is no intelligent life here.
Yeah,
They're still in monkey phase.
they're 3 foot tall beasts of man.
They took me briefly to a big human who didn't give a shit.
They took me to their overlord.
Even after I disappeared from the backpack 4 times, they put me back in the backpack. Once they were home, the boys gathered all the tools that they could carry and started to try and dismantle the UFO. None of the screwdrivers, pliers, or wrenches could open it up a millimeter. This thing was airtight.
This is so rude of Hiroshi's dad at this point. I mean, I get it. If they turn up with a piece of scrap metal, you might be like, I'm busy. But the second that they say, hey, this thing keeps appearing in the same spot, hovering in a rice field for weeks,
Right.
he should be like, all right, I am pretty busy, but actually I'll pause my 1 p.m. meeting because that actually sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, it's hard to say how much they continue to try and get their parents involved, or if maybe
Right,
after the
this was a
first
one and
bit,
done
they were like,
thing.
you know what, guys, fuck it. The adults aren't going to listen to us. This is it. It's boy time. And then they just, did everything by themselves from that point onward.
We've talked many times about the dad squad that have been so helpful in various investigations around the world, but never about a child squad.
Yeah, a boy squad.
Boy squad of young investigators.
Not to be confused with Boy Scouts.
No.
lots of
Those
different
little
things.
shits don't know anything about the paranormal. I've tried for years to lobby the Boy Scouts of America to create a tracking Bigfoot badge, and they refuse.
Yeah. They were like, we want to teach them how to tie a knot.
Sure.
And I said, I do not give a shit if they know how to tie or not. I need them to be able to secure Bigfoot with ropes to the front of my car. That's what I need
So
to be
they
able
do
to
need to be able to tie knots.
Well,
to do
sure,
what you're
one or
talking
two
about.
would help. 1 or 2 just to make sure he's on there.
What
pretty-
age are
pretty
you? There's
well.
no way you were young enough to be a Boy Scout. Where did you get this uniform?
I don't need them to know how to make a campfire, all right? I need them to know how to survive in the wilderness on a cold, ice-cold, frosty night.
The only way to survive in the wilderness on a frosty night is with a campfire.
Or a big jacket held together with knots. That's right. You can use your shoelace, actually, to tie a jacket closed if the zipper breaks.
We've tried teaching you that everything you want to accomplish can be accomplished through the current Boy Scouts program. You can learn all the skills necessary to track Bigfoot.
I don't need them to know how to pitch a tent. I need them to know how to make shelter anywhere, from anything.
Okay, you
Cloth, pegs,
need to leave the Boy Scouts.
inflatable tents. When they're alone in the wilderness, face to face with a grizzly bear, do you think their grizzly bear handling badge is going to come in handy? No, it's not. Because what you need is pure animal instincts.
You have the least badges of any of the Boy Scouts here. You don't know anything of how the wilderness works.
Not so hard, all right? The string you gave me was too thin and I couldn't do it. You gave a bigger string to Trevor and he's got magic little fingers. It's not fair, honestly. Like, you are the oldest Boy Scout we have ever seen. There is no way you remember.
Morning of their second day of their big camp out, all the boys emerge from their tents rested and ready for an exciting day in their pristine uniforms. You're naked, passed out with icicles dangling from your hair and clothes.
Sir, I'm proud to say that I just qualified for my shitting in a bucket badge. That's not a badge.
There's a porta potty over there. That bucket was the only clean drinking water we all had.
Oh, God. So the water wasn't working, the tools weren't working. They decided to get creative and looped some wire through the holes at the bottom. When they hung it upside down, the top and the bottom half seemed to separate just slightly. There appeared to be electronic components inside, but they couldn't pull it apart no matter how much force they used. Eventually, they got frustrated and decided to smash it with a hammer. But no matter how hard they pummeled this object, they didn't leave a single mark. No dents, not even a scratch.
Interesting. So this ain't made of aluminium or stainless steel, my friends. They're bashing it with a hammer.
And nothing's
Nothing's
happening.
happening.
Come on, guys. It's gotta break eventually. Come on. Sing it with me. Gonna break inside the alien craft. Gonna break inside the alien craft. Gonna break inside the alien. The gang pummeled the little UFO for hours until the sun set, and it was time to go home. The alien craft's gonna break inside. The aliens craft's gonna break inside. The aliens craft. It's getting late. I should get home. My parents will be worried.
Yeah, mine too.
Michio waved his friends goodnight at the door and stumbled back inside, yawning. Maybe tomorrow they would make some progress. But being a tired little sleepy baby-brained boy, he went to sleep, forgetting to secure the little UFO for the night. I guess they thought if you hammered it for 4 hours, maybe you would have broken its little robot legs.
Sure.
Or at least its spirit.
But this thing just looked like a drunk driver UFO, just like knocking into shit, knocking over glasses.
Water is its booze. It can barely run, it can barely see anymore. When he awoke the next morning, you guessed it, the craft had disappeared again.
Shitting hell.
At this point, the boys were tearing their hair out from frustration. They just wanted to know what it was, but every encounter only opened up more questions. Who made it? What was its purpose? How did it keep escaping? They resolved to keep on catching it and gleaning whatever information they could. They collected rocks to throw at it to knock it off course. They gathered rope to help restrain it. Anytime it came into view again, they leapt into action. They were experienced spaceship catchers by now. They had it down to a fine art, which I love. I think this story is so cool and unique.
Absolutely. They're like the Ghostbusters of this one nemesis.
And they're pretty bad because they can't bust one ghost, the only ghost that's appeared. Imagine if the Ghostbusters were just like, yeah, we're having a hard time because he's actually pretty elusive, the ghost. We keep putting him in our backpack and he just phases out of it. You'd say, I'm not gonna, who you're gonna call, not you anymore.
It's like Tom and Jerry or something. It's like they're locked in this infinite, never-ending battle of cat and mouse.
Yeah. In one instance, they managed to capture the disc and shoved it into the bag again, but this time securing it with tight knots. The last step was to tie the entire bag to one of the boys' wrists, ensuring it would never be left out of sight. As it dangled from his arm, he felt a tug, and then the bag seemed very light all of a sudden. When they squeezed it, the bag was empty.
How is it doing this? All right, well, you gotta look.
I don't think the bag's working, boys.
At some point, you gotta come up with a different plan.
I think, you're operating under the assumption you can trap it in a backpack or any type of bag, when I think you need a time prison.
Yeah.
Or some sort of interdimensional portal to lock it in.
Yeah, it's so hard to picture what the solution is here. I mean, it almost seems like it's a kind of Schrodinger's cat situation, almost where as soon as it's out of sight, it ceases to exist altogether.
Yeah, it is and both isn't in the bag anymore.
Like if they just sat watching it all night in the rice field, would it just stay there? You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, because there's a lot of talk about, them capturing it, waterboarding it, hitting it with hammers. But I'm not sure if they ever just sat and watched it do whatever it was supposed to do. They never said it was like scanning trees or collecting soil or doing anything. It just seems to be floating there up and down, which is strange. They didn't know it at the time, but that was the last day that the boys would ever see the craft.
Had enough of their shit.
But that wasn't the last time anyone would see it.
Whoa.
4 years later, on the 6th of June, 1976, a 9-year-old girl called Shachiko Oyama was wandering the fields looking for her family cat, when all of a sudden, she spotted something in the sky. A shiny yellow flash caught her attention. She followed the strange object to the edge of the forest, where it quickly zoomed down towards the earth. It bounced off the tree and landed at her feet without making a sound. She bent down to touch the little silver hat. It was solid but covered with slime. Confused and scared, the girl ran home, but as she did, she says she saw the little silver craft light up, spin around, and shoot back upwards into the sky.
Whoa.
Even with this second sighting, the case was pretty much all forgotten about until 2004, when the story appeared in a Japanese manga.
Really?
Yeah, check this out. I thought this was awesome. I handed Kit
that's cool.
a little kind of screenshot from the manga.
This is really cool. So this manga is a, just kind of what you'd imagine standard manga format, but it seems to be detailing exactly what we've talked about, including the schoolboys and trying to show it to adults. And they've done a pretty good job at recreating exactly what it looked like in the photos, down to the carvings, down to the initial image of it looking like a hat. It looks great.
It's pretty cool, isn't it, to say that they've gone into so much detail?
Yeah, they didn't just create a story loosely based on this. They tried to recreate it beat for beat.
Which I actually think is, I mean, what an honor. I mean, it's my dream pretty much for someone to get in contact with me and basically say, hey, we've heard about your interaction with the Dublin Gorilla Man from your childhood. We would love to make that into an anime or a manga and adapt it to really tell your story and get it out there. Because, ever since it's happened, I feel like I haven't been vocal about it, my experience with the creature. And
Well, you've tried, but it's just so sorry. You finished the thought.
Well, I'd kind of finished it. It would be an honor to have someone take interest in that case and develop it possibly into like a Netflix series or something like that where I could.
It would be an honor. It would be an honor if someone could just wipe my ass for me instead of me having to do it. It would be an honor.
I don't understand.
Sure. I mean, everyone would love,
ass
just
wiping.
like a dumb little idea.
Right.
To be turned into a Netflix movie. I don't see how you connect those two.
I think just because it was something quite traumatic in my life growing up. So to just be given the time and...
well, it's traumatic to realize you're a liar.
Well, I think maybe if you would read the manga, you would understand that, there was actually a lot that went into it.
You made the manga?
Well, yeah, I drew some illustrations, and I just think that it could be a launching point for someone to make a full series about it. Here, if I just hand you the comic, because I've done it.
Oh yeah, let me just take
pages.
a little.
No, dude, come on.
And that's what we do with liars and bullshit on this show.
That took me weeks to get that done.
Yeah, I can see that.
I hired an animator from Twitter to actually work on a lot of that. So that's actually
it's a pity that the pencil work and the coloring was so expert on such a nonsense fairy tale. And I think we've said quite enough, and I think we should move on.
Fine. Just, if you do work at Netflix and you want to get in touch about possibly turning my story into an anime.
And if anyone at Netflix just wants to throw their career away and just make a show out of absolutely nothing.
It's rude. It's rude to say that
get in touch. Get in touch with Rory.
Yeah,
talk to Rory if you want to just ruin your life.
Well, after their manga, which was a little more successful than mine, suddenly there was enough interest in the case to reopen it. This time, finally, with some adults involved. In charge of the inquiry was Kazuo Hayashi, the head of the Japan Space Phenomena Society.
Ooh.
So they didn't just get an adult involved, they got the adult involved. The head honcho.
That's
the
pretty
perfect
smart,
person.
actually, yeah.
Kazuo studied the original witness accounts before he went to re-interview all the boys. Each of them recounted the story exactly right, confirming the original details without wavering one bit. He was impressed with their consistency and all of the data and photographs that they had taken at the time. Ultimately, he was convinced that something had happened, but he had to keep digging to find out what. By the end of his investigation, he reached what he thought to be the only logical explanation: that the object had somehow slipped into our world from another dimension.
Wow, that's the only possibility?
Yeah, I don't know if that's the only possibility. I like that, the kids tried for so long to get an adult involved.
Then even the kids were like, all right, cool it.
Like, he didn't even say weather balloon. Usually that's one of them.
He's starting to actually think that we're aliens visiting him to teach him about the f***ing disc.
Look, we've talked enough about the craft. It's time for us to go over some of the possible theories to see if we can get to the bottom of it. Maybe make our own minds up.
That'd be great.
All right, first off on the list of what this thing could possibly be or the reasoning behind it, we have, of course, aliens. This is a disc related to aliens, sent down by aliens, controlled by aliens. As we know, this thing doesn't obey the laws of physics.
Apparently not.
Not gravity or existing. It just kind of dips in, and I guess maybe that's where the parallel dimension thing comes in.
Yeah.
This thing is just disappearing from backpacks
And
willy-nilly.
And the technology does appear to be sufficiently advanced that, this metal, they couldn't even dent it, damage it in any way.
Yeah, so it's really doesn't seem like it's something from another planet. Another possible option is spy technology. The events of this story did happen during the Cold War, where when tensions were pretty high. Could it have been an early Soviet spy drone or possibly some Japanese technology they were working on that is top secret.
It's certainly possible. I mean, were the technologies that advanced at that time? I mean,
They're not now.
The whole thing sounds suspiciously like a drone today, sure, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen videos of drones online. They're very easy to damage.
Yeah.
I've seen drones hit like spiders' webs and they crash into a million pieces.
Yeah.
I don't think if you smashed it for hours and hours with a hammer that it would ever fly again.
Yeah, there's something quite sad about having this piece of equipment worth 100,000 pounds.
Yeah.
But if so much as a bumblebee flies into the rotary blades,
Yeah.
it will explode. It will barrel towards the earth at 100 miles per hour. It's done.
Yeah.
Which is something kind of beautiful about that, about Mother Nature beating the machines. It's kind of like War of the Worlds, you know?
Huh. It is actually pretty beautiful.
Just, something to think about. You can build all the machines you want in this world. You could build a 20-foot robot man. But at the end of the day, he who controls the bees controls the world.
Okay, I don't think the moral of the story is that bees can
I
destroy
really
the
think,
machines.
I really think people underestimate bees.
Oh, okay, well,
I think
that
that
seems
was
like a
the
different
moral of
point.
the story. What was your moral?
You said a minute ago that the point was that nature can destroy the machine world.
Yeah.
And then you seem to get sidetracked with bees
that's
are
pretty-
all powerful or something.
I'm sorry. I think you're getting confused here. The bees kill the machine. How is that not
I
beautiful?
think I said that
Something
if they
so
hit,
sweet
if they hit
destroys
we don't have to
something
get
so
bogged down
cold.
with the bees. What if they hit a bird or a tree?
I hadn't thought about that. So you're saying, you could build these machines. Sorry, let me start over again. Let's get some nice music and things going here because
Okay.
these are important quotes, sound bites to take away from this podcast.
Sure, yeah.
You can build your machines. You can build a 20-foot, 30-foot metal man made of fiberglass and all the little electricity.
Hold on, sorry,
all the
fiberglass
little.
isn't
Will you
me-
shut
isn't
the up for a second?
Okay.
You're ruining the sound bite. This has to be a clean thing. This is the shit people are going to remember
sorry.
when I die. They're going to remember these quotes. So
I don't know if they will. It's very debatable.
roll the music again, please. No interruptions. It's beautiful to think you can build these machines, these 20-foot, 30-foot metal men made of fiberglass and all the electricity that Father Tesla can muster. And in that twisted world of wires and fires, that truly he who controls the seagulls and the bees controls the world. And I might just be one man standing alone in an army of metal madness. But in this twisted, cloudy fog, I see the light. I see the hive. Oh, honey, it's the queen, Mother Nature.
This is you selling Honey Nut Cheerios in an ad. I know, honey, they taste good.
I'm dressed as the fucking sugar puff man. He who controls the bees tastes great. Like, you can't say that. That's Tony the Tiger's copyright. Oh, shit.
Starting to think I should have written something for the day.
So that was just, I don't know. That was just whatever. Some off the top of my head, I guess it's just poetic and interesting. Just an interesting
I mean, we'll
thought.
cut it for sure, but it was fun to
Well, it's my episode, and I'll decide what gets cut or not.
spitball. I don't know why you're so hung up on it. Like, what did you say? A 20 to 30 foot man made of metal and fiberglass?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like the future soldiers of the world have nothing against the current soldiers
Of the hive.
of the hive. Exactly right.
Okay, we're
You
back
are
to the
understanding.
bees.
It's always been about the bees. Because you
Sure.
said some shit earlier about birds.
Okay.
What happens if a bee flies in a bird's beak? It
They eat it.
dies. Really?
I'm pretty
They
sure some
eat it?
birds probably even eat bees.
Really? Is that true?
Probably.
I gotta make a call. Christopher, cancel the bees. Yeah, I just found out some really damning. Yeah,
Cancel the bees shouldn't be in your vocabulary as a phrase. Cancel the bees.
Christopher, here's something that just was revealed to me. You lied. You lied to me, Christopher. You told me the bees were the apex predator of the
Who
world.
is Christopher?
He's my bee guy. All right, and he actually
shouldn't have a
promised
bee
me.
guy.
He promised
Do you
me.
keep bees? Do you make honey?
No, I don't keep honey.
Why do you have a bee guy then?
Because when the 20-foot, nay, 30-foot metal machine, metal
made
men of the world
fiberglass and metal.
start knocking on your door,
Yeah.
telling you to obey or die. What are you gonna do when you're
30
you're
foot is
empty-handed
so high.
and you're
They're not
out of
going to be
bees?
knocking on your door. You think there's... Who are they? Are they robots?
They're robots and they're men. They're robots and they're men. Do you understand? And just don't come crying to me. Don't come
All right,
knocking
fine.
on my hive
Fine.
when it's the end of the world and you're empty-handed and empty-handed and you need some help, because me and Christopher are going to be just fine. Christopher, though, cancel the B order. Do cancel the B
You've
order.
actually
Christopher.
changed my mind. If I could get Christopher's number, because I feel like I could do with some bees.
You want
now.
the bees? But what about, you said birds eat bees? You said that birds eat bees, right? Is that true?
It's absolutely
Oh,
not
hold
true.
on,
but
give me a second. Hey Siri, do birds eat bees? No, Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. She won't listen to me. She's one of them. My God. Siri is a 20-foot, nay 30-foot metal woman.
A booming voice comes from the phone.
Christopher, release them.
Christopher releases a single bee that stings you in the ass.
The other possible explanations were this is a dumb one. A driving range was set up nearby, and apparently the lights that illuminate it sometimes made birds look like UFOs.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
I hate when people come out with explanations like this, as if that's like the biggest fucking checkmate.
I know.
It's like, did you not hear the story that they abducted this thing and like did experiments on it, photographed it?
There's a picture of one of the children
pictures.
holding
There's
it.
pictures of it. It's not a fucking bird.
We go back and look. It's a seagull, actually.
It's actually a seagull eating a bee, and it died because it couldn't digest the bee. Michio is a 30-foot man.
The last theory is, of course, that the whole thing could have been an elaborate hoax. One of the kids could have found this weird-looking hat thing and just made the whole thing up. That would explain why there are so many photos of it. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen photos of it. I think a kid would have a pretty hard time replicating that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, as we said, it really doesn't look like anything that would be like a part of something else. You know, it's not a scrap from a car. It's really weird and unique. And I mean, the carvings alone, how are you getting those carvings onto metal? How's a kid doing that?
That's very interesting. To be honest, I hadn't even dwelled too long on the idea that this could be a hoax, when indeed it could. And that would explain why the kid's dad didn't give a shit, because that's a neat little explanation for why they didn't get any adults involved. The only counter to that is, of course, this UFO fanatic who decided that it was a UFO.
Yeah, all those years later.
So it also comes down to, I guess he's the only outside witness. Do we trust him?
It's a good point. Do we trust him? Do we trust those kids? Do we trust the evidence that we can see with our own two eyes?
For people who pretty much live and breathe the phrase trust no one, this is a difficult conclusion to swallow.
It really is. And yet we were here at that conclusion. It's time to decide, Kit. This case today, what are we calling it? The Kera UFO case in Japan? What are your thoughts?
Shit, Rory, this is a case of a lifetime. This is absolutely massive, and thank you and well done and congratulations for
Thank you.
for ripping this one a new a-hole. And thanks, of course, to Amy Grisdale for researching it as well. There's a lot to unpick. It's a really fascinating play-by-play because it's so different to many of the other investigations we do, which are maybe crazy, flash in the pans, like you say. This is so methodical. We have this elaborate history of investigation by these boys, but we're still left at the end with a giant question mark, which is just, do we trust them?
Yeah, ultimately, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Because there's no other explanation for the thing itself. I don't think personally that it's possible that this is some kind of military technology, some kind of weather balloon, some kind of bird.
No.
This is either paranormal or none of it happened.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption to make. And you know, we do say, you know, again and again on this podcast, do we trust children? But something to bear in mind now is that these children are men now, men older than us.
It's true.
And they, to this day, stick by their story word for word. So that's something to think about. That's definitely something to think about, you know, as a group of people who, from what I can tell, have nothing to gain from sticking to that story. You know, they haven't made TV shows. they weren't responsible for that manga. That was
So
just
true.
someone else with an interest. It's interesting to hear that even today, they're like, yeah, of course, it's all real. You've seen the pictures. It exists. And that's why I'm going yes this week. That's right. This case is a yes. If we don't say yes on a paranormal case where they capture a UFO and photograph it, then what are we going to say yes to?
That's a call to arms if ever I've heard one, brother. And I'm going to respond with an emphatic yes.
Hey! We finally did it, folks. After the no drought, we come in with the double yes.
Wow.
Well done, well done. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of This Paranormal Life. What a joy to get a yes. I didn't know going into that one which way I was gonna tip, but I think there is just too much here. There's too much going on that even if we can't decide what happened, we can decide that it was definitely not normal, and I think that's safe.
We've got to get the message out there and hopefully dig up more dirt in this one. We'd love to hear more.
So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of This Paranormal Life. And thank you to Pia Helen for sending that one in. That was an email submission sent into thisparanormallifepodcast@gmail.com. There was also submissions sent into the This Paranormal Life Facebook page, The Secret Society. Lots of fun ways to get involved and become part of a really interesting group of people.
And then after the fact, shout out to Rena and Shabazz, who both sent in some great information about Jinn in our recent episode.
This is great because it means that we're learning new things, we're finding new cases, but also we know that we're covering cases that you guys want us to talk about. It's a dream. It's a win-win. If you enjoyed today's episode and you just can't get enough of that paranormal goo, you're going to want to head on over to This Paranormal Life Patreon.
Rory?
What?
What
happened?
That was weird. You were in the middle of shouting out about Patreon and you
Right.
fell asleep?
No, I was... Really?
Yeah,
Sorry,
you went,
just-
I think to quote, you went Patreon and then you
Sorry.
started
just-
snoring.
I don't know.
I didn't know if it was a bit, but
That was just a
You look
big
pretty
episode.
groggy,
and
actually.
it was late night last night. I think I need to end the show.
I think so.
My brain is
what
going
were
a
you
little.
staying up late doing?
It's irrelevant. From as little as 5 pounds, as little as 5 pounds a month. It's the bees have been keeping me up late at night. By the way,
it's also not £5, by the way.
For as little as $5.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
$5.
All right. It's the buzzing, the constant buzzing. The whole house is basically vibrating 24/7. For as little as $5 a month,
Yeah.
you can get access to a whole bunch.
So you already have that many
new-
bees, and
I already have
you were
a
then
lot of
talking to
bees.
Chris about cancel the bees. You were gonna get more bees.
I was gonna get a couple more bees. You know what they
couple.
say? It's like that old saying: you can never have too many bees.
No one's ever said that. Just get the Patreon.
For
thing
as little
done.
as $5 a month, you can get access to a whole hive of sweet, delicious honey. If you bonus episodes where Kit and I are buzzing in your ears, telling you all these fantastic paranormal stories. And there's also more goodies as well. You can get merchandise from the show. This Paranormal Life t-shirts. If you want to promote the commune, promote the show in style, and also have a uniform that complies with the very strict dress codes of the paranormal commune, you're going to want to get some This Paranormal Life merchandise. Fit for a queen, you could say.
And the dress
merches.
code is a nudist colony.
Right.
There's no clothes.
It's the shirt only. No pants, no shoes, no socks. Yeah, check it out. It's the best way to get even more for the show and also support us directly so we can do even more things. Like even right now, we have our new video setup with the cameras, all of which has been provided by our community. So it really makes a difference and we massively appreciate it. So thank you. So you got your double yes, finally. As always, we will be back next week with a brand new paranormal tale. And until then, folks, remember to live fast, investigate, and die.
Buzz, baby.